We're doing our Sunday sit down where you're armchair pundits. It's regular gals talking the shit and trying to figure stuff out. But there's a lot of stuff on our mind. I'll just say to people that are in here, some stuff we want to talk about is the SAVE Act or whatever they're calling it now. Mega Dump Act, Stop the Voting Act. We also saw the FCC chair come down with trying to shut down media when it comes to wanting to control the airways. Some stuff in Virginia. We saw some racial fires drop. They're kind of crazy. And the races is sort of like people are feeling a little nervous about it because stuff is really starting to happen in Virginia over how we're going to win the midterms. It will affect everybody. So those are just some things on our mind. But in general, we're glad you're here. It's Sunday night. We're all adjusted to the new time, I think, maybe.
Yeah, we are. And I just want to say to the folks in the room, because we're so happy you're here,
Yes.
if there's a question or something that you want to know our opinion about, just pop it in there and we'll keep looking and we'll talk about it and tell you what we think about it. So, Catherine, where do you want to start?
Well, I think, one thing we want to tell people that tonight, what we did, we do the Friday Power Lunch on Fridays. We really are trying to make some headway, not only with the Yes campaign, but Cheryl Smith is running for the seat in Virginia Beach. And I just want to give a big shout out for Cheryl. So Cheryl Smith, we've been having her on the show. We've been uplifting Cheryl because I think what a lot of stuff when we think about really behind the scenes, what it takes to have the courage to stand up and run. And Cheryl Smith is in Virginia Beach and House District 98. Barry Knight was a Republican there, and Barry, dead or alive, didn't do a great job in his district. Sorry, Barry. But anyways, she ran before, lost, and now she has the opportunity to win. But she was on the call tonight. We did some phone banking for her, and we showed her a video of Put a Woman in Charge. You might know it. Put a Woman in Charge. It's a great Ebo, right? And she started to cry. And she was just moved and said, I wish my mother was here to see me, run. So you ran, Fennell. You know what it's like to be a candidate in these areas with maybe there's no chance. But the other side, and now this is what I want to ask you, what it feels like when you phone bank to these people and you take your time out of the day and they tell you they're not interested.
Yeah, that's I don't know if it's a breakdown or bewildered. So
Bewildered.
bewildered. I think it's bewildered.
Yeah.
Yes, we took our time to make these phone calls to folks to tell them about this election, that they have an opportunity to go out in this special election. Well, it's bad enough when they hang up on you, and so that's one thing. They just like you, before you can get your word out, they just and then when you do get them and you start to have the conversation, and for a woman, this is the part that gets me. When we're talking about a woman running for the things that we care about, reproductive health, education, affordable housing, and she
Yes.
says, "I'm not interested,"
I'm not interested.
and hangs up. And so that that was sort of it bewilders me because I do believe that at the end of the day, the folks who will end up changing this country just because of sheer numbers is women. But I suppose that's why we don't say it's 100% that we need, because there are some women who, despite the fact that you tell them and you
Yeah.
talk to them and you try to show them and tell
Right.
the stories about what women have done and accomplished in this country, all the way from the 19th Amendment to where they are in sports and pay, we're still 82 cents behind,
There's
men
a lot
per
behind.
dollar.
Right.
Yeah, so we're still pretty far behind, but the point is for some women to not be interested is just sort of bewildering to me.
Just people in general. So what was funny about this, everybody, is that Fennell and I are talking shit. I hate phone banking. I'm not going to do it. I'll just do when I got it. I get it. And I go, look, I just can't stand that people can't just be civil. Like, we do canvassing, you do phone banking, I think this is why people like to text and do postcards. Okay. People were just too fragile. We don't want to hear what people have to say to us. But when you're on the doors, it's harder for people, but they still do it. You slam the door in your face. I don't know if anybody here has had that experience, but then, you're trying to keep your beat up. You're trying to keep yourself positive, and people can be, it just takes that really nice person though. Then it's sort of like golfing. You get one good shot. But we were on the phone. So I kind of wanted to start there just a little bit, kind of center us in something that we can really do locally in our state. And when we do really, Cheryl has been doing a lot. It really touched me seeing her today and really realizing what her life's been like the last so many weeks to do this, and that she's overwhelmed so many people coming out to help her. Um, but then with, shifting into voting and we're fighting so hard for it, And we know Republicans are trying to shut it down. So when you talk to these voters that are like, "Oh, I'm busy. I don't have any time. I can't vote." And you're just like, "Ugh, well, who's gonna save your ass?" Like what? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, see,
Trying to say,
yeah, so let's talk about 2 things. And so for those in Virginia, you know that we are focused on the referendum.
"Oh, yeah."
And what I'd like to say is that this vote is not just for Virginia. And when
Right.
I try to talk to people about it, because we're having all these discussions about some people who are like, "Well, it's gerrymandering," and I tell people I don't like it either, but we have to do it. But I don't say that. I
Mhm.
don't say I don't like it either. And I think everybody who's here understands what's happening. You know that this is in reaction to what Trump has asked Republican states to do, North Carolina, uh, um, Texas, Missouri. I don't know. There's a few others. There's a few others, and Florida's going to do it too. And what I say to folks is that all of these places have done this and been okay. Texas by the Supreme Court. So you could just see the rules change and decide to just sit still, but you
Yeah.
know in your soul that's not right. And so we have decided that we're not going to do that. We're going to fight the fight that we're in, and that is to redraw these lines to
Right.
give our voters a fair chance at making sure that we get people elected who are going to change this country. The reason why I say that is because it is so important. If you think about the fact that we have a Congress in place today, and this is why it's bigger than Virginia, bigger than the country, who's decided to take us into war without any kind of action from Congress. And we're in a war now that's outside of our country. That is huge. So that's why this campaign is so much bigger than just Virginia. It is something that shapes the country right now. So that's why it's so
Yeah.
important to get off your high horses and just get on out there
Yeah, and
and
do
talk to people.
and what you're saying about this campaign, I think there's a lot of stuff, and it's so important. And I also think it really kind of shows if I don't know, just about people in general, about how hard it is to do these campaigns. And we've taken a lot of our energy into trying to help, right? So I was even at a roundtable discussion today, and one of the ladies there was feeling like, oh, it's not going well about the campaign. And I had to say to her, look, California felt the same way about Prop 50. So don't worry. You go through, I think, a phase of feeling overwhelmed because everybody's talking about these freaking racist flyers, folks, that are dropping on people's doors. Republicans will do whatever. They'll sell their grandma, they'll sell their first baby, just to get everything. I'm so sorry. I'm going to pick on them really nastily because they will. The day that those flyers drop, I mean, the first day of early voting, Bloody Sunday, and they're sending them to everybody, and they're just doing a campaign of confusion. But I almost watching people in Signal and chat about it, it's also confusing people, Democrats, even people that are really they're reading all this and they're reading this stuff and they feel overwhelmed by it too because they know everybody's getting it because they've received it. They feel like kind of boxed out. I think we're doing better than we think, but because I think people will catch on kind of quickly about it. We think we've done a pretty good front job on some of this, but it is going to take a lot of work because really they are flooding the zone. And I don't know how you feel about this, but I'm watching our own team get really deflated by it.
Well, I'm not deflated.
Not
I'll
you,
tell
but
you.
I'm saying that you know how
Well,
Democrats
I mean,
never.
I'm telling you about me.
Okay, let's talk about you.
We're talking about me.
This is about the
I'm not deflated. I get frustrated when I think that we could do
the better.
more because I think
Mhm.
you want to overperform. You don't want to just make it. You want to really overperform. And I think there are things we could do to overperform. But I was at lunch today and I talked to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people in the restaurant. They were sitting eating, and I would come up and I would say, "Hi, are you ladies Virginia voters?" And they go, "Yeah." And I go, "Are you familiar with the referendum that's happening right now, the Yes campaign?" And they were like, one of them, I already voted. And
Right.
so they were just very, very well aware. There was only one who had not voted yet and did not know about the campaign. So
Right.
what I would say is that it depends on who you're talking to, which tells us where our opportunities are. So people are seem to be pretty aware. I think it's just to not stop, to keep at it.
No, I agree. And what I think within these internal, you'll see I'm on a back channel with a lot of different groups and they are sharing all the mailers and people are looking at them. And I think it's just one of those things that what I'm trying to really kind of get at is the tactics Republicans are using is to get in your head. It's a war of mind control, and that's purposeful. So I want to tell us, that that's really super important too, to get in our heads. And I think also it's overwhelming to run a state program and to get to all the different people in all the corners. It is very difficult. But I've seen these great ads run during March Madness and all that kind of stuff. But I just think in general, what I'd really like to talk to you about and just is that they focused on the race stuff. Like they've literally went there to try to win this election. What does that say to you when you think about this, what MAGA minds, how they work, that they all
Yeah.
sit around the table and they go, "Let's send this racist stuff.
Well,
Let's."
here's what I think. I think that they are ruthless.
They're
And
ruthless.
I think that we, have to start understanding that they are
Sure.
ruthless and they will do whatever it takes to try to win. And I think that we have to keep that mindset
Right,
in our own heads to know that, again, you fight the fight that you're in. This is not playtime anymore. They have demonstrated to us over and over again that they are willing to bring whatever equipment that's needed to the fight to win. And
right,
we have got to start to understand that we have to fight that too. The other thing that I would say is that, the notion that they think that we're really stupid. And so
yeah,
they, because that's what that really is, that they're using that, appropriating that, sending it to voters, telling you to send it back really fast so that you don't even have a chance to think about it. That's why it's important that we get to voters first. That's why it's important that wherever those postcards were mailed, that we get into the community with trusted people and talk to them about why this campaign is a yes campaign and not a no campaign. So that's what I think. I think
no,
they
I
think we're
agree.
stupid.
Well, and I also like another thing that I think we've talked about before is that people that there's groups that will be like, well, we really can't go in and be so partisan. And I really questioned that at the table today. I said, look, you have to remember this is really different. I think if you're even a C3 and a C4, I believe you can really argue for the yes without worrying about your even because you can really argue the voting rights thing with this idea about voting yes for this in some ways. But I also think stop worrying about it and just this is life or death and it's okay to go out and tell people this is why I'm endorsing that we support this ballot initiative to protect this and this. And I think that we're just so trained in our way that we've all around nonprofit stuff and C3 and C4 Democrats have this kind of mindset of fairness, and they are taking advantage of that, and I think we have to put that aside and know that it is actually fairness, and we are leveling it, and we just have to get determined. So, well, moving on from there, because I do think we have a lot of time, we're getting signs out, it's pretty exciting, I'll tell people, our signs are dropping, I even gave them out to friends today. I'm gonna go pick up 8 4x4s. Somebody out in the Isle of Wight picked out 4 big ones. We're seeing some good energy around it, I'm be positive. But I do want to talk about the SAVE Act because it's in the news again. And what are your thoughts going on with that? I mean, I know we saw a long time ago, we rang the bell with it, and so many people were like, oh, it's never going to happen. And maybe they didn't even know about it. But here we are with them really pushing it in the Senate and talking about breaking this filibuster.
Yeah. So let me just say, first of all, acknowledging that it's Women's History Month. We talked
Oh,
about that last week. So I want to just acknowledge again that it's Women's History Month. And of course, we should talk about women. And the SAVE Act, absolutely focuses on
oh, great.
women because women will be one of the groups that's severely impacted by this because when you marry, a lot of women, myself included, change your name. And so that means that you have to have a name that matches, which means that if you've got a passport, you might be in good shape. But you'd have to be able to have a trail to go to your name, which means your
Right,
birth certificate, your marriage certificate, and then whatever else you need to take in to show that you are who you are, because it's really about showing that you are a citizen of the United States. So they have this ad or that they they pony out and said trot out and say
mhm.
84% of Americans believe that you should have a photo ID. You
Yeah,
have to have a photo ID, to buy a beer and wine and alcohol. Then I say, "Good, then let's just use that to vote with." So the point is, it's really not about the kind of ID that you have,
right,
for them. It is about the kind of ID that you have. It is the ID that kicks out a bunch of people that they don't want to have voting. So then they say that. I know that when I'm there, my husband who's out there, who's in the chair, he says just about everybody comes in with photo ID. So we don't have a photo ID problem. So I think the point of this act is to limit people who vote. We all know this. Everybody on this line knows this. But the point is that we have to talk to people so that they understand why this is so bad, and so bad for certain groups of people, and certainly bad for women. Not to mention that if you just keep on peeling this back and look at the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025 and think about how they are trying to impact women, this all falls right in line. So there's always a greater reason for why they are trying to do the things they do. Yes, it's to try to win the election, but it is also to put women back
Yeah.
into
No,
some place
it
that we don't want to be.
no, I it ooh, my it feels like I'm an earthquake over here. No, I agree. I mean, it's funny to think about, not funny, but I think when we just all the lines that we think about with the racial mailers controversy, those tactics that they are doing, every tactic to kind of, no, we always say they don't leave anybody out, right? They're very inclusive for being against it. I mean, we know these mailers kind of mobilize white voters, right? Suppress minority turnout. Then they kinda start to frame the kind of threats. They know how to frame these threats pretty well. And then with their voting, their bills is like, how can we just disenfranchise as many people as we can? They just really don't leave anything out. And what you always say is about the margins. It's the margins where it is. And talk about that a little bit.
Well, I think that Republicans really do focus on how many people can we peel off.
Yeah,
And so if you think about that, geez, I'm so hot. If you think about that, um, they do that all the time. So they know they won't get all of these voters in these mailers, but they'll peel off just enough. And so whenever they are talking about anything, they want to always make it right. And so they can just peel off some. And we'll say, well, it's not important to talk about that.
right.
Well, it really is. You can't let anything go undone when it comes to them, because if you don't fight back, you'll lose your margins, and we can't afford to lose margins. So in this particular campaign that they are sending out these mailers
Right.
appropriating the civil rights movement, we have to speak to that. We can't let them get away with anything. They are ruthless. They try everything, and we cannot allow them to take our margins away.
No,
That's
the
what.
margins. Well, and it's funny because, looking at a long-term strategy too, what really bothered me, like now we're in this a war, or I don't know, it feels like Trump is calling it, what is he calling it? Excursion, like he's going shopping or something, right? Pretty serious in the sense of how it's escalated and spread. And we know that this is probably, the most dangerous time I could think of in a long time, that feels very heavy on, because I feel like they have no plan, right? But when it comes to the home front in the sense of the media, and we saw the FCC come out with, trying to restrict what Americans can see in the war, that I think it's Brendan Carr, the Federal Commission's commissioner, warning broadcasters that their licenses were going to be, taken away if they speak a certain way. So we're really seeing a lot of this idea, which kind of was interesting because I thought, wouldn't they have shut down Fox News like already? Because isn't it? They said if you have fake news, your license could be revoked. I'm like, okay, so where's fake news if
So
they're taken down? Like such freaking hypocrites. You're like, I'm thinking, just don't go there. But it is, again, we see everybody in this administration, all these shutdowns, and of course, the cover up of the Epstein files is ongoing.
okay. So here's what I would say about that. For anybody who follows what happens in Hungary,
Yeah.
'cause I know we're probably going all over the place, but it really is about voter suppression because you have an election, it just isn't
Strategy.
the right election.
Mhm.
But if you follow what's happening in Hungary, all of these things are happening. We're actually faster than Hungary, which hopefully maybe that's what happens. They overreach. But the point is that the media is one of those places
Mhm.
where they have these rich people who support them, buy up all the media stations and social media, TikTok and Facebook and CBS and Comedy Central and just about every other one you can think of. Then they have the ability to shape the news. The reason that this is so important is for anybody who might have seen it, and I try to pay attention to these things. One of the things that Hedgepeth, whatever his
When
Secretary of Defense said
no,
when he was
or
giving the when Secretary of War said when he was doing the briefing, Pete Hegseth, he said, "You guys have been saying that we were unprepared or we underestimated what was going to happen with the Strait of Hormuz." And so he says, "We did not underestimate. You guys are fake news, and thankfully Ellison will take over, and CNN won't be doing this kind of news." Well, he said it out loud, so
Right.
it's
Yeah.
not like they don't tell you what they're going to do. So when you think about them and what they're doing, women taking away voting from women and anybody else that they don't think should be voting. That's important to them. Changing the media so that you only get the news that they want you to have. That's happening. These are things that happened in Hungary,
Right.
and these are things that they are really working very hard to have happen here.
Well, they're all instead. I know they may seem like all over the map, but they're actually what they have in common. It's that democracy battle that are happening at three fronts at once. When you're in this kind of really big battle, it's sort of like any of these world wars, you have all these fronts. They're not just on one front. It's sort of like you run into this door, they're on the voting rights, and they go over here and they're on their media. So you have voting access, you have the SAVE Act, similar bills trying to restrict voter nationwide. You have information control. Woo, FCC, you know, this is this is sort of another front, and then representation, redistricting fights. We have all these different things going on, and that's about who holds power for a decade, by the way. And so, whoever gets to draw those maps, think about this, everybody in the room. Who gets to vote? Who controls the narrative and who draws the maps? Who determine political power in America? This is Virginia. Who controls political power in America is all about this vote in Virginia right now, this referendum. So if we can't pull this off, we're going to really be behind. And I think this is why I don't want us to sort of get deflated. We have to keep working at it and keep talking to people. And this is going to be, as we ramp up, we're going to have to just really just keep at it. Because at the end of the day, as you like to say, people want to sock it to Trump. And I think we keep it simple. That's what I do is just don't talk too much. Keep it simple. Keep it simple and get out there and vote yes to the dress. Say no to the pedos. That's my new saying. Say yes to the dress. Say no to the pedos, pedophiles. That's my new thing.
Yeah, I think as I sort of think about, this evening and the things that we've
Mhm.
talked about. So the SAVE Act,
Yes.
which, it's just always important to know what's coming around the corner, and that is so important. And when you dig into it, to figure out why would someone care so much about it. And the interesting thing is that most of the elections that have happened when it's been someone who's done something fraudulently, it's been Republicans. The data's right there. Even the Heritage Foundation, which I think is just really, it's just so creepy. It really is. If
Yeah.
you read the stuff from the Heritage Foundation and some of their
Yeah.
other organizations, they're just creepy and scary, and they really don't like women. They if you just read what they say and what they want to do, the SAVE Act is very clearly part of what they believe. Women should not have the right to vote. Women should be at home. They should be birthing babies or taking care of them, and
Yeah.
that is it. They shouldn't be in high positions. They shouldn't have birth control. They shouldn't have any of these things. And the very first part of this is taking away our right to vote. That is that. Then the next thing in terms of this whole conversation is the say yes, is that in order for us to protect ourselves,
Yeah.
we have to get people in Congress who at least have some degree of humanity and common sense and decency and just are not so power hungry that they would do anything that a crazy person would say and do. And look at him sleeping in meetings and still think that that was okay.
No.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Just everything about him, looking at the drapes and not even. Yeah, it's beyond creepy, just all of it. And I was some days I think about, all the work we do, a lot of it in the grassroots and our time dedicated to this. I was talking to my brother tonight. He goes, "You get paid for that job you do all day? You got no health care?" He's making fun of me. Called, I'm like, "No, this is what we do all day because we are fighting for democracy kind of thing, right?" But there's people that sit around and write this project, creepy people that have all the time in the world to write that stupid project 2025 that is so weird And I have to say, when you look at like my point of view of life, it's a joyful thing, this life. We could be doing so much. Like we could be curing diseases. We could be rated for climate resiliency. We could be, doing so much good for the world. And these motherfuckers are sitting around writing shit like women can't vote. Let's go. And it's like, don't you have something better to do? Can't someone just put a paintbrush in your hand and, and just really, I just find that like given this life on earth, you have a certain time and these people want to make everybody miserable. And I have to say, what is the matter with their world vision? I just will be judgmental for a second. And I'm like, I just feel like the bombs and the billions being spent on this war, all this stuff, there is something a matter with our framework, this kind of, I'll call it MAGA world framework. And it's just not MAGA world, it's in other countries too. And
Yeah.
it's really hard to shift that. And it's unfortunate because, it's the time suck of just trying to say, gosh, let's fight. Let's just have a beautiful world where we can do cool stuff. And they're like, no, I want to drown a puppy or I want to shoot a puppy in a ditch. You're like, what?
Yeah. So let
Oh,
me
your
so
mind
let me
going off on a tangent.
let me just say this. So, I do think, that it's more of us than them. I think that they're just louder, and I
Yes, they
think that
are.
they have been given voice to be louder. I think that, it's probably somewhere 35-40% of them, and then there's the folks that go along. Now, I will tell you that if I just change the subject over to immigration and what's happening with the
Yeah.
detention centers, I have been really surprised by the number of Republicans who are satisfied with Trump's methods in terms of what they're doing with immigration.
Hmm.
And so I find that hard to believe. But my point would be is I don't believe that they are seeing some of the things that are actually happening. So I think that Fox News probably doesn't show a lot of things because I find it hard to believe. I mean, even after slavery and some of the most horrendous things that were done there, that people are going to be today okay with putting people in ice boxes. That's what they call it, an ice box in
Right.
these detention centers where they put them in an ice box where it's really, really cold so that they will say, just send me back. I don't need to go through any kind of paperwork. Just send me back to whatever country.
Right.
They do that to force them to go back. I just believe that if American people are forced to see that and to hear the stories
Right.
and to be, to understand what this country is actually doing in these detention centers, and that they can look people in the eye and say, "Yeah, I'm really okay with that." Then I
Yeah.
think you have to start comparing them to say, "Okay, I'm not really sure who you are," because there is, in fact, as it relates to humanity, there is a high road, and there is a low road, and I think people have to make a choice. And we might be really surprised by some of the choices that people make,
Yeah.
but that's where we are today. So it really is an obligation to wake up people, those people that I call the unengaged, the exhausted,
The ones
the
that hang up on you.
the ones who hang up on me. There's probably a different way to engage with them because everybody doesn't engage the same way. But I think we have to think differently about how we go about this. There
Yeah.
is ways to go about this. Some of them involve the new technology, but maybe some of it doesn't. I would like to end us with just thinking about the Montgomery boycott.
Yeah.
I would end us with thinking, and that's really because of Rosa Parks, women's history. I would end us with thinking about Mary McLeod Bethune, who, 15 of 17 children, first one born out of slavery, really pushed for education, really got things done. So these people have gotten things done with less resources than we have
Yeah.
today. So
Yes.
I just have this belief that if we ideate on what we ought to be thinking and saying and doing, that we will come up with the answers because we must.
Yes. And I think, and to kind of layer that other piece on it, when we were talking with Michael Riston from Saltbox, which was, by the way, a great interview. I went back, and if folks go on our Substack, on Fridays we have our live show. Saltbox was just wonderful, and the whole idea about the Saltbox kind of when just kind of help yourself, help your neighbors, go over there, throw salt to get rid of the ice on the street. Just a great name, just it sums it all up. But the idea that we sort of find people centering a value we all care about. We may have a lot of disagreements, but we're centering people that we can find that care about this country or humanity and say, look, we may not agree about all this around here, but let's agree about this. And Michael was really great talking about how in the salt box of what they did was do the warehouse detention trackers, really show what's happening with the money. And what was happening is what we learned is local work is so important, and also building those coalitions. Going back to, you went back in history, Heather Cox Richardson went back in history just on Friday, and she was talking about, again, abolition times, building the coalition, and how it took like 20 years kind of when then finally Lincoln was elected. This is a long process, but it is building these partnerships. And I think we have to keep finding and building those coalition, women, men, up, down, fat, skinny, everybody, and find the people that we can center that value around and move with that. That's something I think that's really important. And that's in the Yes campaign. And I'll end on one thing. Cheryl Smith, who's running House District 98, said something really cool tonight. I don't know if you heard her story, but she said that she was at the polling place and she went to greet the voter and she was all excited. This old couple came a long way to vote for her. They turned and he had a big MAGA hat on. Did you hear her? Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, she goes, "Oh my gosh." And she's thinking to herself, "Oh," and he says, and a lady took her hand and says, "Honey, we're so happy to meet you." And the guy that had the MAGA hat on, "We need a fresher breath air." And those, maybe that fresher breath air is going to just be, in the end, there'll be plenty of those folks that come to vote for Cheryl, a Democrat, who have a MAGA hat on their head.
I we'll see. I wanted to answer Rich C's question. He said
Oh, I didn't see it 'cause
concentration.
I'm gonna, oh, please, go ahead.
So it was concentration camps, and you're absolutely right. All concentration camps aren't death camps, and but concentration camps are really what these detention centers are, because they are places that
Concentrate
you put
people.
people where you take away their rights. They don't have the right to due process, and they don't have the right conditions, and so that is in fact a concentration camp, and a concentration camp isn't necessarily a death camp, which is what they had in Germany. So I think we are okay to call them concentration camps because they are horrible, horrible places that they are doing on purpose
Yeah.
to scare people and to
Oh,
make them not want to come here and not want to have due process and just be deported quickly.
well,
I wanted,
I can clarify that too, because Heather Cox Richardson uses concentration camp because it's not detention. Like detaining is detaining, like you said, temporary. Concentrate is concentrated amount of people for, for a long time, and that's where we should. It's a correct word. I do want to say I see Robin in here. I see Stare, and there's some other messages in here. It's great to see people. But go ahead with your follow up.
yeah, I was just going to say, as we work through all of this and the sacrifices that we're all making, I'm on this Mary McLeod Bethune thing because she just
I know.
really inspires me so much. But I
How
was
many
talking
babies
to,
do we have?
I'm sorry.
Say 15 babies.
No. She was her mother had 17 children. She was
My great
15.
grandma had 17 children
Yeah,
too.
they had 17. She was 15 to 17. She was the first one born out of slavery,
Wow. Okay.
but
Got it.
into deep poverty. But she was all about voting and she was all about education. And so one of the things that happened then, and I'm saying this for women in terms of what we have to do in the SAVE Act, is we have to start getting our stuff together. If we've got family and friends who
Yes.
don't have
Paperwork.
passports, don't have their paperwork, then let's start helping them get their paperwork in order. Because Mary Bethune would say to people, she would say, you have your bread, but don't put butter on it. You save your money so you can pay your poll tax. And she would tell people that to say, this is what's important. And I
Yeah.
laugh at some of us. We can't stay out of Target, can't stay out of Dollar General, can't stay out of some of these stores that just are the worst for us.
Yeah.
Where here during this period, she's saying, no, don't butter your bread. You don't have money for that. You need to save those
Told you I
coins.
want my butter on my bread.
Save those coins so that you can pay your poll tax. And so I say all of that to say that again, they did not have the resources that we have, but the fight was real. So whether it's the women's suffragist movement, as we learn about all kinds of things in for sisterhood with
Yeah.
Robin's work, if it's the abolitionist movement, they did not have the tools and resources that we
Right.
have today. So we can use their resources, tools, and tactics, and we can use the new things too. But we just have to figure out this group of people, these folks who are deciding to be here tonight. We're the ones who figure out how to get some of this stuff done. That's all.
Yeah. And Does that mean we can't eat at Surfrider when I come?
No, no more Surfrider.
What? Okay.
And if you have a hush puppy, no butter for
No
you.
butter for the hush puppy. Well, I'm so glad everybody's joined us tonight, and I know I could talk. It's not like we haven't talked 8 times, we could talk some more, but, it's important people are engaged. We're glad people spent some time with us tonight, and I wanna welcome you on Friday. We're gonna have the Friday Power Lunch Live, and we're gonna have the really Culting of America, the woman, I'm just like, all of a sudden, Daniela Mazurek, her Young, I'm getting her name all mashed up. If Laura Bell's on here, Bell, put it in the chat.
Mhm.
'Cause I'm not looking at anything, but the book is that's gonna be really interesting to talk about. Being a veteran, yeah, Daniela Young, it's that middle name, the Mazurek, it's a great name. She is a veteran. She's been on just recently having some really interesting stuff about Iran and the war and some insight she has with this and about cults. I am so, interested in her story, and then we're gonna talk to Susan Wagner is gonna come on, we're gonna talk about cliques. Sort of like we're talking cliques and cults a little bit about, the grassroots needing to be pushed up into the media ecosystem and that we're thinking it's time that we, sort of, um, get recognized in certain areas for the kind of work we're doing, but just interesting talk, and so we hope you join us on Friday. So that's my sign off.
Okay, good. Well, we're like only like 5 minutes, 7 minutes over time.
We got to start a little late, and I have been chasing some little doggies around. Everybody, have a good night. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your
Good
time.
night,
Yeah,
everybody.
we'll see you. Good night. Yay.